Welcome to the Design Dash podcast, your guide to designing a life you love. Join us as we explore the keys to living the life you want without compromise.
Welcome to the Design Dash podcast. I'm Laura Umansky, your co-host, here with Melissa Grove. Hey, and we are both slightly under the weather, which is just going to make for a super fun podcast. So hopefully our voices will hold out through this whole episode. Fantastic. It's all the travel, and it's, personal travel, work travel, whatever, but just bouncing all over the place. I think you're just asking to come down with a cold or something. But
we came back to a very busy week. That didn't help.
That is true. That is true. However, the team had a lot of it under control, with all of it, pretty much. So that is the purpose of today's episode, which is startup mode versus scale up mode, how to know when you're ready to build a team. And I talk about this a lot. Melissa does too, because we have a larger team at Laura U Design Collective, our design firm. We are a team of about 15 or 16 people, typically right around there. And I feel like as a creative entrepreneur that building a team is the best way to design your business and your life and give yourself the gift of creativity and freedom of time and profit in your business. So I'm all about building a team. So we're going to talk about the difference between startup mode when you're just starting your business, or maybe you've been in business for years, but you're lingering in startup mode, and then scaling up and how and when to do that. So we are very much I don't even know if we're in scale up mode right now. I feel like we found like a happy spot for our firm. It took a while. It took a while to find that. So Melissa, how do you know when you're in startup mode? Like, what does startup mode look like?
I think that's that time when you're really hungry and you're okay with doing everything. And you probably are, you're hungry, you're okay to do it. You're eager to do everything because you're still proving yourself. You're proving your business model. You are seeking validation that what you're doing is right and that you're meeting your goals. Because I think that when you're in that startup mode, there's also a lot of pivoting too, and you're learning what's working and what isn't.
Yeah, I think that's really true. Like when you're starting up, you're like, okay, hello world, here I am. This is what I'm offering. World, do you want this? Like, is there room for my business concept? So you're really testing your systems are either really informal or non-existent.
Right?
Because you're like, right, you're wearing every hat. Like you may have started out with some sort of concept of, okay, this is what I need for my business. I may have my contracts. I may have like a little bit of a flow for how I'm going to work and my process, or you may not. You may just dive in and fall into it, and that's okay too. But I think like those key characteristics of a startup is you are wearing every hat. You're the designer, you're the bookkeeper, you're the social media manager, you're the project manager, you're oftentimes the delivery person, you're the intern, like you're really doing everything. And your costs are kept as low as possible because unless you're starting out with just an influx of cash, like you've put money into it, you are working with whatever you can bring in. So, I mean, it is the best of times and the worst of times, probably as a startup mode, but you're oftentimes by yourself.
Yeah, what was it like
for you? It was just
like
like that. It was crazy. It was crazy. But I did have a loan. So I invested money in a location. So I wanted to have a really small little like showroom and a little studio. And so, but I left myself with this loan, 3 months of operating cash. I'd calculated what I thought I needed for 3 months. So I gave myself 3 months from the day I opened to start bringing in clients and creating income for myself, which I did. I don't know. I mean, 3 months happens
That's
fast, but
quick.
when you're just starting, you're like, ooh, not, yeah, you're like 90 days. I can do that. But like you said, when you're in startup mode, you're hungry. Like you are living, breathing, everything is about that business. Like if you don't feel like that about your business, then you may not be ready to start one. Like you need to do nothing but think about this business and execute on those thoughts.
Yeah.
Um,
There's an
and I
urgency
just,
there.
it got, yes, urgency, like a real fire under you to get this thing going. Like there's no option. You're doing it.
Yeah.
And so I did, though, get clients right away. And so I did get that cash going. And within 90 days, I had already hired 2 people because I'd gotten so busy, I couldn't do everything myself. But I was also saying yes to every single project that came in the door because I had that urgency and I was like, ooh, I need the cash. So yeah, I think just like the story of most startups, you're just busy, busy, busy and going, going, going until you sit down and you're like, oh my God, I can't do this myself. So I think that's when you hit that scale up mode. And for me, it's when we do our like find your best focus workshop. And if you haven't taken it, it's really, this workshop is geared to finding what you do best in your business, what you love and what you're skilled at doing, and then what you don't love doing and you're not good at. And that's what you should hire for.
Yeah.
So I think that when you get to that scale up mode, you're experiencing these pain points and things get so painful for you that you have to make a change. Um, like for you, Melissa, what are those pain points? Like even in our business now, we have 15, 16 people, whatever. What's
Yeah.
that pain point when we know we need to hire somebody?
Workload is a big one. When you feel like, gosh, there's just too much work, or you're saying no to projects that you really want to take on, but you just can't.
Yeah.
Um, I think also when you're running into process issues, like, oh gosh, like all those clunky band-aids that were working when it was just you, you're going to find out that they're just not working anymore because you have so much work, or you want to make your business a little bit more sophisticated. You want to really streamline it, but you can't because your processes just no longer align with the kind of business that you're trying to run. I think that was a big one for me, and something that, I've been with the business now for 7 years, but we spent years refining process, and we already had them, but and those years I think were painful. We were just refining, and they were non-fun things: accounting process, marketing process. Like, how do you streamline PNs or potential new clients when they're coming in, and nurturing them through to that first meeting? Just all of those kinds of things that you simply do not have time for when you're in that startup mode. But once you get to scale up mode, you realize, okay, I need to have these things in place because I want to get bigger. I want to do better. I want to look better. I just want to be a more high-end business, and a high-end business runs better, has better systems.
And I think you said it a second ago, like a more sophisticated business. For me, oh gosh, I was probably like 5 years in. I had a team of maybe 10. We were still completely snowed under, just taking on more work than we could handle. And I remember presenting to, we were doing hospitality, so bar restaurant at this time too, which I
Yeah.
don't do now because that is not my wheelhouse. And I really learned my lesson on this one project. Um, just keeping in mind the sophistication of the firm, we were creating construction documents for a pretty detailed interior build out for a restaurant. And I had pretty much no clue what I was doing, but I was also delegating a lot to a relatively fresh team. And so I let drawings go in front of a client and in front of a builder that I hadn't reviewed and that were, upon this presentation, they were really bad. They were not representing the design intent, like they weren't even buildable. And they were, I mean, the designer that had produced them, bless her, had never done them either. I couldn't have done them. So at that point, when we put this in front of a builder and a client, I knew I have to hire skilled designers that have done this before, because I haven't done it and I can't put this kind of work in front of a builder. I have got to get more sophisticated about my processes and my deliverables. And it's
Yeah.
really in those cringe moments that you're like, ooh, I am at a pain point right now. Like what my projects are calling for is more than I can deliver. And so when you
Yeah.
are under delivering, that's a pain point for sure.
Absolutely.
So I think there are those kind of, yeah, there are those cues that you get, I think, through pain that it's time to scale up. Um,
Exactly.
and it sucks to learn those lessons, but it's also, if you can just look at it with that positivity that I like to have, it's a good problem to have because people are coming to you for the work you're producing. So your end result is good. It's just those processes in the middle that have to get tweaked and fixed.
Yeah, and
And you
I
can do
think
that
also
with a team.
too,
You don't.
like, as it being in a creative business, those are the kinds of things that I notice from working with designers. They do not want to do. Like all of the designers that we work with, they hate the process side of it. Except for like the select few who are unicorns, I feel like. But they want to do the creative stuff. They don't want to have to write out a process for phases of a design business. And I think that that can also lead to that avoidance burnout as well.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I love a process, but I want to spend time in it and I want to live in it. I don't want to like write it on the side while I'm trying to produce all of the work that the business actually needs. And like, how often do you really just get buckets of time to produce a process when you're actually producing work? It doesn't happen. So I
Well, and
think
is
you
that even the
also have
best
to give
use of your
yourself some
time?
grace too.
Like, I don't know if
No,
sitting
true.
down and writing a process is the best use of your time.
But your team, like hiring a team, they can help you develop this process. You can work together to do it. So it's
Yep.
not just on you as the business owner. If you are building this team that are coming in with their unique qualifications and their skill set, they can also help you to establish what your process is. Or you can work with us at Design Dash, like be in our community, because we also spell out what our process is. So if you don't want to reinvent the wheel, we can hand you our process and you can learn what that is and use it if it works for you. Um, but I think like often it's the scariest thing I think that other designers share, like what they're scared of is, can I afford to hire somebody? Like I am in startup mode and maybe I've been in startup mode for way longer than I'd like to be. I may be in startup mode for 4 years and I'm by myself. And maybe I kind of dabbled in hiring someone, but didn't work out. And so now I don't feel great about that. How do you, how do you know when you should hire if you've kind of like maybe you're gun shy, it just hasn't worked in the past? How do you know you should hire and how do you do it successfully?
And I think it really varies and it really depends on the business. Also, I think there are some people who they look at their pain points and it's very obvious that their next hire needs to be an accounting person. And I know that that can often be tricky for some people because that accounting person isn't billable. And so we think, oh gosh, well, I can't take on somebody else that isn't billable. But man, a good accountant can help you keep the money that you're earning. And so I do think that that's highly valuable. For needing another designer, and again, it's so much easier said than done, right? Because I've never been in that position before where I've been the design business owner having to say, okay, can I hire and can I not? But from my perspective, just on the finance and operations side, hiring another designer is one of the easiest decisions that you can make, especially if you're hourly billing, because you, as long as that
Mm-hmm.
work is coming in, that big caveat, they will always make more for the business than what they cost. Always, whether they're an intern or they're a senior director level designer, they will always make more. Now, of course, you need to determine what their costs are. You need to take a look at your profit margins and what you want to be bringing in and adjust their salaries accordingly. But that's a very easy process. And once that's completed, that person will make more for your business than you would have ever made without them. So I think that that designer is a easy choice.
Okay, so let's say I am listening to you say that designer is an easy choice. And I say, okay, I am a solopreneur. I'm on my own. I have a handful of clients. I have 3 active projects, for example. I feel like I'm ready to hire a design assistant because I am running to the deck center and I am pulling samples, but then I don't really have time to meet with my client, or I need to be on site to meet with the builder. So I don't have time to put schemes together or whatever it is. I feel like I really need the support of a design assistant. Okay, what's the first thing I do? I can tell you, like, I'm asking that as a question. I'm going to tell you. First thing I would do is crunch my numbers. Okay, how do I afford this design assistant? I have these 3 projects. This is how I build them. Hopefully it's hourly. If it is not hourly, I want you to highly consider switching to that billing method, especially as you're hiring.
Yeah.
Let's assume it's hourly. So I want to hire this design assistant. I am maxed out on my hours. I'm at least 80% utilized, and I'm billing my time towards these projects. I can bring in a design assistant and I can bill her time. So what does that look like as far as like cost of the design and real numbers, cost of the design assistant versus what they can bill? And they can be round numbers and guesses, like full-time design assistant. What does that cost me versus what can I bill her or
I
him
mean, you should be marking up
at?
a design assistant anywhere from 200 to 300% of what they're going to cost you. And of course, that's going to depend on where you are geographically. But let's say that, you're paying this design assistant. Let's say you're in a very expensive market, high cost of living. For round numbers, you're paying them $50 an hour. You should be charging $100 or $150 an hour for their time.
Okay. And so at $50 an hour, what is that salary wise? Because if we're hiring full time, right?
Okay.
So I'm going to just calculate 50 times 2080 is a 40-hour work week. So $50 at 2,080 hours a year is $104,000. Okay, that's a really expensive design assistant. Let's make him $25 an hour times, okay, $52,000 for design assistant. Maybe you're middle of the country or you're in a lower cost of living area. So let's say $50,000 a year, because $100,000, no one's going to hire anyone. So $50,000 a year. But you also have to consider that the company isn't paying taxes and benefits and all of those things. Okay, so we're paying this design assistant, our brand new super skilled design assistant, roughly $50,000 a year, which equates to around $25 an hour. There are those benefits and taxes and things that you need to consider when you're hiring someone. So we assign a blanket like 20% to that, right?
Yes. Health insurance, employment taxes, all that good stuff. It's about a 20%
Which is another
expense load.
roughly $10,000 on top of the 50. So let's say you're paying them $60,000 a year divided by 2,080 hours. So $28 an hour. You can charge $125 an hour for this person's time. So if they are billing 30 hours a week, you're covering yourself, right? So let's say you charge $125 an hour. They're working 30 hours a week. That's $37.50 a week times 52 weeks. You can bill $195,000 a year for their time. And that's not even working a full 40 hours, because that's not realistic. No one's going to bill exactly 40 hours a week. It just is impossible. Let's say they're billing 30. You can bill $195,000 for this person if you have the work and you're tracking your time really diligently, which tracking your time, that's up to you. You can do that. Having the work, you will free yourself up to go win those better projects. You will be delivering better work to your current clients who will then refer you. So your job then becomes business development and
Yeah.
creative direction instead
Sense.
of wearing all the hats. Because your design assistant is going to be doing a lot of things. You're also going to be leading them, making sure they know what they should be doing, showing them how to track their time. Like there's a lot that goes into it, but you could really, I mean, they're paying for themselves. There's no reason not to hire this person.
Yep.
Bookkeeper,
That's
on the other hand, is not billable. So, which would be first for you, Melissa? Design assistant or bookkeeper, or both in tandem?
I mean, again, it's so hard to just say you should be doing this because it totally depends on your business. You could be a designer who has a finance
I
background,
know.
and so you are completely comfortable with handling your own invoices, with answering those questions. You may enjoy even
Oh,
crunching
but
those
who wants to
numbers,
do that?
P&L. So some people may like that. But then you may be a designer who's like, I absolutely hate that and it's draining to me. I I do not look forward to doing it. And I think if you've reached a point of that much pain, it's important then to delegate those tasks to somebody who truly does enjoy it. And so then I think that yes, an accounting person could be your first fit. I know some huge designers where a marketing person was their first hire outside of another designer because they were hungry enough and
Yes.
eager enough
Yeah.
and said, I can handle every single part of this, but I don't want to handle my own social media. And since I'm not taking the time to do the business development, I
Totally.
need to delegate this to somebody else. And that ends up being their first hire. And then they start getting more work. And now they're thinking, okay, now I can hire a design assistant. I want to do the stuff that I really want to focus on, the more creative stuff and be a little bit more high level. So it's just completely specific to the business owner, I think.
I agree with that, but I also think like it's best use of your time. If you come into your own business wanting to create a sustainable, successful, financially stable and successful business, you need to think about what is your best use as the business owner. Also, what do you love to do clearly? Because you don't have to take yourself out of that completely, what you love to do. But you may need to take yourself out of it some in order to push the business forward if it is your ambition to grow your firm. And in that case, you need to think about what is your best use as the firm owner. And more often than not, your best use is going to be being the visionary. So keeping an eye on the brand. What is your brand? Keeping an eye on that marketing, keeping an eye on your clients, business development, and then making sure your services are delivered correctly. And then mentoring and growing your team. Like I feel like those higher level actions are the purpose. And that takes time to step into any one of those roles, but all of them takes quite a while. But I think you do start with like if it was me, and it has been me, and I've done this in the past, I started with an office manager first. That was my very first hire, was office manager. And it was loose. Like it was my sister. And I was like, hey, I need you to come do invoicing and bookkeeping and answer the phone and be a warm body in the office when I'm out on site. Like I just needed a person. And so that was my very first hire. And then my second hire was a design assistant. I need someone to go to the deck center, run errands, help me pin up like good taste level, pin up fabric schemes, like pull furniture options, those kind of things. Those were my first two hires. And really it was reaction. It was a reactive hire, both of them, just because I jumped into it without knowing. And I was just like, ooh, I need help. And what do I hate the most? Bookkeeping. Hire. And then I need to be on site and out of the office. What do I need? I need someone that can do these things that have to get done for projects if I'm not physically there. Design assistant. And so I would encourage people to think about those two roles first. But it was a very different time too. I didn't need that marketing person at that time. Social media wasn't a thing. Like that wasn't a thing. I built a badass website and then it was grassroots marketing from there. Social media, yes, that would probably be up there for me.
Yeah.
Maybe higher number 3 or 4.
Yeah, and I think especially if you don't have the time to
Um,
do the business development that you want to do, having somebody handle that marketing for you and bringing in leads almost passively in terms of your effort and time commitment, I think that's really appealing.
so let's say someone's ready to hire their office manager, their or whatever, office assistant. We don't need to make them a manager. Office assistant, design assistant, social media person. Um, how can they tell if they can afford to hire? Like, are there some simple ways to check financial readiness? Or is it more just like a mental state? I mean, that it's not. You have to be financially ready.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's not a one size fits all sort of answer. For me, I'm really conservative, so I would probably want to have 4 to 6 months of their salary saved up somehow. Like I knew no matter what, I could cover their livelihood, especially if I'm taking them from whatever they had before and bringing them into my ecosystem. I would want to make sure that I could cover that for 4 to 6 months. I think that there are some designers that I've spoken to, they're completely confident in just having 3 months or maybe even 2, or they know they don't even have that yet. They just have a big project on the horizon that they just closed, and they know that they won't be able to take care of that on their own, and they're hiring at that point, which I guess you could
Yeah.
say
So
that that is somewhat reactive, but I don't know. I think that's also the natural way of doing things in that instance too.
yeah, it is chicken and egg. It's like, can you hire before you have that big project? But how do you spend the time to get that big project if you haven't hired and have somebody to support you?
Yeah, it's tough.
Um, I like to see, I mean, when I first started hiring, it was reactive, but now I like to see that we have a very healthy pipeline. I can see work coming, and we're probably on a wait list of at least 2 months. Like, we're not starting projects right away because we don't have the capacity with our current team. But
Yeah.
even as a first time hire, I would want to see, okay, I have a pipeline, and I have projects that I know are going to last several months. And I can pay this person 90 days is I'm fine with that because I know I can hit, I am one of those confident people that I'm like, I can pound the pavement, I can bring in the work. I know I can get it and I can support this hire.
Mhm.
Um, so for me, it would be 90 days of, can I pay this $25 an hour? Can I pay them for the next 3 months based on current bank account and also work that I know is coming or looks like it's coming in? Like, anything can happen, things fall out all the time. But do I think that can I reasonably say that work is coming in? Um, what are some mistakes that we've made when we hire people?
Where do I
You
begin?
you as COO, you have a lot to do with the like you have a lot to do with the hiring. So what are some mistakes that we've made that like I don't know. I don't know that we need to like lay it all out there, but like what are some common mistakes that you've seen?
I think a big one is going through the interview process too quickly. But there are also some times where we can go through it too slowly. I think pacing yourself appropriately, but also
Uh
asking the right
like
questions.
Goldilocks.
I think it's so important to ask the right questions and to ask tough ones, to ask situational questions, especially for designers that you're going to bring on that are going to be client facing. You need to make sure that they're competent enough and have the experience enough, especially when it's very early on, because you're not going to be able to be there at their side every second, checking drafts of their emails and making sure that they know how to communicate. You're probably going to want somebody who has a little bit more experience than that, but how do you suss that out before you bring them on board? You need to ask the right interview questions. And I think it has taken us a while to figure out exactly what those questions are because we're also a very large firm. So we have different positions and obviously situations are different. They're tiered depending on experience level. But I think we've finally gotten to a good place with that. But I would say that is number one is handling the interview process.
Like, give me an example of a situational question. Like, what would be a good question? And I don't want to put you on the
Yeah,
spot, but I feel like you probably have one.
yeah. So for a designer, have you ever had an experience where you're presenting to a client and you can tell whether they've said it directly or you're just getting that vibe, they don't like what you're presenting? What do you do? And so I want to know, can they
Do you
pivot?
want me to answer that?
Yeah, like, can they answer that question? Like, can they pivot in the design? Are they clued in enough to a client's body language to understand that yes, they might not like this, and what I'm really looking for is an honest answer that they have had that experience before. Because just as we talked about
Yeah.
earlier, I think nothing teaches you what to do like a mistake. Like you can make some big mistakes and you will never make those mistakes again. So I'm really looking to see if they've actually experienced before. And you can tell. You can tell.
And what about with like I don't know, salary. Like, has there been a time we've made a mistake in the hiring process with salary or benefits or that kind of thing? Like, is there a pitfall there that
I don't
someone should avoid?
certainly not with benefits. We offer some really good ones. I think particularly for this industry, we're pretty flexible. So I don't think that we've ever made any mistakes there. Have we ever, in my opinion, uh, paid somebody more than I thought we should have? Of course. I think that happens. Have we ever gone in and underpaid somebody? Sure, we've done that too. That one is far easier to correct, however. So, and we have
Yeah,
done that before.
totally. Yeah, I think like back to the interview process too, dragging it out too long is a mistake.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's not really fair to the person interviewing either. But it's hard to know from one interview. So I think like you said, take your time, but do it as quick as possible. So like 3 interviews for us is that's what we do. We do 3 interviews, but we try to keep it within 2 weeks because
Yes, and I
otherwise
think
you're
that
just dragging it out and like,
that's the good thing. And we're not a big corporation, sure. If you are interviewing at Exxon and you're going through a 6-week interview process, sure,
right.
that's the corporate world. But I think for a small business, 2 to 3 weeks from that
Yeah.
first interview to hire is ideal.
So let's say we've decided to hire this person. We did it within 2 weeks. We paid them perfectly, not too low, not too high. They are going to start. And we're really excited because holy moly, we are completely underwater and we are floundering, like completely going crazy. We need this person to start. What do you do to prep for them to start without just setting them up to completely fail? Because I'm guilty of this in the past. Now we don't. We have a process. We have an onboarding process. Before, I would just throw someone in. Like, I am so freaking stressed out and can't keep up with what I've got. And I am reactive. I hired you because I can't do this anymore and I am burned out. Here's a laptop. Here's a client list. Here's a general idea of what we're doing. Bye. Go. Like, that is just setting them up to fail. So, what is the biggest piece of advice you can give to someone when they're hiring in this like first week this person's coming in?
Yeah, well, again, it depends. If it's just you, that's a very different scenario than like where we are now. We have a 90-day onboarding process. There's several people that can train
Yeah.
them. But if it's just you, and I've been on the other side of this of really small companies where I'm one of 3 people, I think really taking those first couple of days to really work one-on-one with them. Yes, I know that you as a business owner, you have a ton of stuff to do, but you're bringing on this person, especially if they're your second or third hire, you want to make sure that they feel valued. And in order to do that, you need to take the time to introduce them to your business and to your workflow. You may not have a handbook at that point in time, and that's totally okay. I think the most important thing is to provide your time. I've been in places before where the person who hired you doesn't talk to you for those first 7 days, and I've left places like that before. It's like, obviously, I'm not valued here. Why did you even hire me? I'm gone in the first 2 weeks, and you definitely don't want that. So, show respect to this new team member. Take them out to lunch that first day. Try to get to know them. Tell them a little bit about your business. Reinforce why you hired them. Like, say, I really appreciated this thing that you did in the interview. That's why I hired you. That's going to create, I think, that kind of trust that you'll need to have a successful working relationship for years.
Yeah. And I think like you are hiring because you're busy. That's just a reality. You're not hiring because you have loads of time to train someone just in the off chance you get work. Like, you're hiring because you're really busy. So I think, yes, involving them, showing them your business at the bare minimum, have them shadow you,
Right.
have
Yeah.
them watch what you're doing all day. But I think it's really important for them to understand week one what their role is. So reinforcing their role, what you expect them to do, what's going to make them successful, what's going to make the firm successful versus what you do. So even if they're shadowing you, I think it gives you opportunities to point out like, hey, I'm doing this right now. Watch this because this is what you're going to be expected to do. Like I won't be doing this anymore after, you've got the hang of it. This is your role. And I think that also gives you the opportunity to in real time think about like, oh yeah, this is something I'm going to delegate. Like,
Yeah.
how cool is that? I get to like train this
Not do it
person to
anymore.
learn and to do this, and then I don't have to do this anymore. So I think at the bare minimum, just having them shadow you, even if it's for a week. And I know that's super weird to have somebody like just tagging along. But if you don't have time to properly delegate and onboard because it's just you or you just hired your first couple people, shadowing could be a good way just to keep your work and your momentum going while like actively training and delegating.
Yes, absolutely.
So, aside from that, like talking about delegating, there's a mindset shift that has to happen when you go from startup to scale up. Like when you're in startup, you're doing every single thing, it all falls on you. And that's one mindset. When you're going to scale up, you're going to hire people and you're going to have to trust that they know what they're doing or can learn what they should be doing.
Right.
So, what are some things that you do in your role, Melissa, because you have a team of 5 people or more? I don't even know. What helps you let go and trust others?
I'm trying to not take my people, like include my people into this, but I have to. I think hiring the right people is paramount, and knowing that they are competent enough that they can be accountable and autonomous. Um, I'm an autonomous person. I like working on my own, and
Yep.
so I like to hire people who are the same. And I know that that's hard, and I've made the wrong hire many times in the past. You just sometimes you just don't know until you're working with somebody, and sometimes you just don't know until you're working with somebody after 6 months. Um, but I think
Right.
making the right hire is number one, and I think again making sure that you're there for them whenever they have questions, creating an environment of trust and safety so they can ask these dumb questions that they're afraid to ask, or that they would be afraid to ask otherwise if you weren't open to that. Uh, and I also think that the onboarding process is very long. I, I, yes, we do it for 90 days, but of course it's
So much longer than you think.
so much longer than that. I meet with my team members every week in big group settings. I check in on them one on one. We go out to lunch. We do stuff outside of work. We talk about Love Island and what we're doing personally on the weekends and all kinds of things. And I do think that that's important. Like, I think that if you want to really trust a team member to do these kinds of things, you have to enjoy them as an actual human being and a person. So I know that's such a softball answer. I was like, oh, of
No,
course.
I don't
But
think so. I mean, I think
I
that
truly think that that's important.
and I think onboarding does take so much longer than you think, and you should give yourself grace because for like a design position, they may not be fully onboarded with your firm and your process until they do an entire project from start to finish. And they
Yeah.
see how it runs from start, bringing that client in to finish when you are done troubleshooting that project and you've sent them their, like, thank you so much for working with us gift. Okay, so I feel like we have covered in the last 40 minutes, just quickly, what it looks like to be a startup, going to scale up and doing that with intention. Um, there's so much to say about this. I mean, that's why we talk about it so much. Oh, but let's talk about this. So we are going to host an intensive. So maybe just like a quick overview. And I know we haven't like this is not launched anywhere, and it won't be probably for a couple weeks. But we are hosting an intensive. What's up with that, Melissa?
Yeah. So you can catch Laura and me in Design Chicago. We'll be there October 8th and 9th, and we're going to host a full day workshop about just this hiring and onboarding and building a
Yep.
team, intentionally building a team and a business that's structured, sustainable, and scalable. So if you're planning to be on Design Chicago, or if
Yep.
you're not and you want to join us there, then give us a ring. Check us out on Instagram. We'll be sharing a lot more information on how to join us soon.
Yep. And it's going to be an intensive, which is an all day situation. And you're going to come away with an exact plan for your business on how to scale. So we're really excited about it because a lot of times I feel like a podcast like this may give you an overview, or a 1 hour workshop gives you an overview, but you may not come away with those exact tools or an exact plan for you.
Right.
But this intensive, that is the point, is that you are going to walk away with, okay, I have a plan and I know what I'm doing next. So we're really excited about it. Yeah. So once we launch it, you're going to hear nonstop about it. So get ready.
Be the first to know.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, Melissa. This has been a good one.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you for listening. Make sure to check out our next podcast, coming live next week on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. In the meantime, you can find us and more wonderful stories like these on designdash.com. And make sure to follow us at Design Dasher on Instagram and TikTok. Till next time.